it's Elizabeth Sweetwater here with a new video, this time about sewing corners. I will show you how to make the sweetheart neckline this time, and the technique I use you can also apply to making the V, deep V neckline and the square neckline. After that I will show you also how to sew the shoulder of the tea dress, because that also contains a corner and it's more or less the same technique. Enjoy this video. I will start with the sweetheart neckband. You can use the exact same method for the deep V and for the square neckline. So I've prepared a couple of things. First of all, I have created some help lines by ironing the fabric. So what you do is you place the neckline on top of one another and you fold and iron a help line. You do the same when you make a V, you just fold it in half and then you iron the mid-front line. After that, as a little help, I have reinforced my corners with some iron-on interlining. On this interlining you can mark out where you need to make your cut. I have indicated 1 centimeter here and also 8 millimeters, and you will cut 8 millimeters. So there's 2 millimeters left on this line. Then for the neckband I've sewn all the pieces together and folded them over, pressed them and top stitched all along on 8 millimeters from the edge. I will pin the band on the neckline. I've turned over my front piece, so the right side is now on top. So what I do is I'll place the band with this seam on the help line, like so. So the seam and the help line form one line. I will go 2 millimeters under this stitch line and pin right through the band, and 2 millimeters underneath my cut here, and then you turn it over and then you can see if you're at the right spot that you just indicated. Then you turn it over and then you can pin the other 2 sides of the corner. And you will pin the other 2 corners the same way, and then the space in between. And after that it's a good idea to also baste the band on the neckline, because it will be a lot easier to sew it when it's basted. And just a quick close-up as well, you can see now from up close how it's pinned. You can see here my help line, and the pin goes right through the 1 centimeter point here, and 2 more pins on either side. So now I will baste this whole line. So as you can see, I've now basted my neckband to the neck on exactly 1 centimeter from the edge. I show you the other side. You can also see the basted line, and it goes exactly through that 1 centimeter point that you've indicated on this corner. And now I will sew it with my sewing machine, and you will have to sew it on this side. So you can open up this clipping and it's easier to sew. When you sew a corner, you want all the gathering of the fabric out of the way. So you will use one hand to make sure the fabric doesn't gather. So that's my left hand here. And of course your other hand you need to steer. I'm using a stretch stitch apart from when you get to the point here. Then you just use a couple of normal stitches so you can get exactly into the point of the corner. And so this is what it looks like when it's sewn. So as you can see, there's no wrinkling or puckering anywhere. All that's left to do now is to overlock the inside and cut away a few millimeters while you're overlocking it. So I can't show you the overlocking in action because the light of my overlock machine does funny things to the camera. But I wanted to show you that when you're overlocking a square neck or a V-neck, you will do this in straight lines. So you need to sew this line first, and then you stop, and then you do the next straight line, and so on and so on. So the sweetheart neck is now ready, it's overlocked. All you have to do is tuck these little overlock threads underneath your seam. You can also top stitch this edge with about 1/2 centimeter of top stitch, and that's it. And now I would like to show you how to sew the corner of the shoulder seam of the tea dress. I have cut out all my pieces and prepared them. This is my front. I have gathered this area here so it will fit in between the two pins of the back piece. I have enforced this point here, and clipped it as shown on the pattern, and same with the back. Enforced it here with some interfacing and cut out some triangles as shown on the pattern. This is the back of the collar. So normally you would have 2 of these pieces sewn together, so you have a seam here, and the seam would go to the mid-back of the yoke. I forgot to mention that I also indicated where the shoulder is on the back. So now I need to pin the front with the collar to the back yoke. I will start with the seam of the collar and pin it to the middle of the back neck. So you would have a seam here and you pin it to the back neck. So always right sides together. Then you would pin the shoulder points together. And then you pin the gathered front in between the 2 points on the back. And then you can pin this area in between. So I would first take the middle of it. As you can see, I marked exactly where the 1 centimeter point is, so you can put your pin right through there, and then just as I done before with the sweetheart neck, I would recommend first basting it, because it will be a lot easier to sew it. So, and this is what it looks like once it's basted. I would recommend that you would sew on this side, because then you have this tricky area to sew, and then you have all the control not to get any puckering. I will sew my seam with a stretch stitch up to a few stitches before this clipped point, and then with a regular stitch it's easier to control to exactly go over this point. With your left hand you hold all the fabric together so it doesn't bunch up when you're sewing. So, and here we have the finished shoulder corner. I've taken out my basting thread, Now you don't have to overlock this seam any further, because you will make another piece, a facing piece that will go on the inside, so the seam will be on the inside of that. Okay, that's it for the corner video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully you now have the confidence to do it yourself.